So I'm taking my daily walk. I'm going to get home, and I'm going to record a video about what's happening to Wall Street bets and Gamestop and all these other things. It's one of the funniest things that I've seen in quite some time, but I also think it is an indication of something that's not going to stop. I'm going to talk to you about kind of an explanation of what it is, some of the sayings that are going to like weird, we can remain retarded longer than they can stay solvent. There's things like that, but I think this is something to do with the United States of America, something that I've been trying to make sense of ever since, maybe in part since Trump was president, but most definitely since the recent presidential election. I'm trying to understand, what is it that I'm going, what's kind of the general theme of these next 4 years? What am I seeing right now? And I think one of the main things I've been seeing is we're going to witness in the United States of America what happens when the main primary structures of a culture, of a society, decide that they're no longer going to abide by the accepted social contracts. And that's all that a society really is. It's just people have these social contracts that they say we're going to deal in a certain way. I'm going to walk over here, record my video, you guys get to walk and take your things. I'm not just going to be pissed off, lash out, and push somebody over. The cars are not just going to start driving on either side of the road. Nobody's really enforcing these things. This is just the way things are going. People are not going to be like, I'm just going to take down that lighting pole and get those solar panels and go out there and use them and sell them. There's general social contracts that we just have with each other that are actually unsaid, and not in the whole sense like, oh, it's a social contract for like taxation, but that's one of the key ones. People just in general accept that we're going to pretend that taxation isn't theft. It's literally somebody taking money away from you and giving it to other people, without you saying you wanted to or not. But if somebody does that in the private sector, outside of the government, outside of the accepted structures that we have, we say that's theft. But if it's these people doing it for certain agreed reasons, it's not. So we accept that. But what happens when those people say, we're not playing by those rules anymore? I think that's what you're going to see happen. Hey, so we're getting into this now. On the screen, if you're watching the video version of this, there's going to be speed drawing going on of, I think we're going to do the Parasite speed drawing. That's from that movie by, I forget his name. Let me double check. It's by Boon Joon-ho. It's a Korean film. If you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's really good. I think it fits for this right now because we're talking about things with classes. It's not really about races, it's not really about this, even though they've been trying to say some of the shutdowns that were happening with some of these sites like the Discord and things like that of Wall Street Bets. Oh, it's because of white supremacy and all these kind of racist things in there. No, it's not. This is about the class. This is not about what's going on. It's not about the races. It's about who is being affected. Just like with January 6th, when the main primary politicians were the ones being affected by the unrest, the treatment of that is entirely different from when you have the summer of love and you have all that thing in the summer when it's regular citizens going through the things. Again, we're talking about the social contracts. The ones that we have within each other are still existent. Those still exist despite what the elites and the other people in the institutions actually have. And with this film, I think it's good because you watch the film and whose side are you on? Who is really the parasite in this situation? Who is actually wrong? Whose families do you support in this situation? Do you understand where people are coming from? Do you understand the frustration? Are they still doing something ethical, or is it moral for what they're doing? And I think that's something that I think is good to kind of think of when you look at this situation, both going on with Wall Street Bets and just other things in life in general. I think there's a difference between things being ethical and moral, and I have a separate video talking about that, how there's a difference with laws. You think you can be... The discussion itself in that video was about defining morals and ethics, and it was asking, can you be immorally ethical or unethically moral? And it was something where, like, I think to be ethical, it doesn't have to do with morality, but in general, the best ethics, which is more the system of laws and the ways we actually behave with each other, when they're actually moral, that makes those ethics stronger and more fitting to the culture and society that they're living in. And I think there is a discrepancy coming up right now, specifically in the United States of America, between the morals of the general populace and the ethics that the societies actually ran on. So let me just get into the post. There's going to be a post here on my blog, rantathon.wordpress.com. I'm probably going to purchase that Rantathon actual site. Thinking of getting Rantathon or The Dying Alive. I'm thinking of figuring out a way to have everything in one place. But this one is going to be a lot of sources. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. And there's already a post up that I shall link below that will have the links to the images and the things that I'm using on this for this video, for this content, for this presentation, or post, whatever this is. Okay, so here we go with this. First, I'm going to start with a little explanation of everything that's going on, that this topic, this Wall Street bet situation, from Willie Olio on Reddit. I'm just going to read what they wrote. This was somebody asking what's going on. This is what the person wrote, and I read this, and it made some sense to me, and maybe it's going to make some sense to you as well. Okay. Stock market in a nutshell. Companies are worth something. On the stock market, people buy shares of that company. If more people want to buy shares, the shares are worth more. The opposite is also true. Basic supply and demand. This part, I think, makes most sense. It's simple. That's kind of my general agreement of it. Maybe I should try to just read it through without getting commentary and then talk about it after. I don't know. Okay, back. I'll try to do a slightly different voice for the parts from actually reading what was actually written. Note the statement. It has nothing to do with how well a company is actually doing. It's based 100% entirely on the supply and demand of the shares that drives the price. Typically, on a normal, reasonable, non-meme day, people will want to buy shares of companies that are doing well. People do not want to buy shares of companies doing poorly. So stock price typically reflects how well a company is doing. That is not what is happening. There is one type of investor called a short seller. There is a way to make money on stocks going down in price. Basically, it goes like this. 1. You borrow the shares with a promise to return the shares on a set date. 2. Sell the shares immediately and pocket the money. 3. The later date comes, buy the shares, and return those shares to the original owner. So if it's worth less on a later date, then they get to keep the difference, profit from a share dropping down. So with this stuff going on about AMC, it actually started with the Gamestop stock. I think AMC is just the next target. But the same thing is happening, and it applies to both. GameStop is going down the drain. People don't go to brick and mortar stores to buy video games anymore. Both Amazon and online stores like Steam, Xbox, or PlayStation online services have severely hampered their sales and profits. People expect them to go out of business soon. Same thing with AMC. People weren't going to the theaters as much even before COVID. After COVID, theater companies are going out of business regularly. Thus, short sellers have been doing their thing, expecting GameStop to go bankrupt. While normal investors can theoretically lose 100% of what they invested, that's the worst case scenario. You buy a stock, it drops to zero, you lost everything. Short sellers, however, can lose way more than that. Theoretically, infinity. You borrow a stock, promise to buy it back later, it goes up 100%, they lose 100%. If it goes up 500%, they lose 500% of their investment. Very important point to note. The short sellers bet way too much. That is, there's only so much of the stock of any company going around. The short sellers basically ended up shorting so much of the stock that basically, when they promise to buy back those shares later, they have to buy more than 100% of the stock available. Terrible decision? Yes. Greedy? Hell yes. Why is this even legal? Who the hell knows? Remember what I said about stocks. At the very top of this post, what a share is worth is not based on the company. It's worth whatever people want to buy those shares for. Supply and demand. What happens when the demand goes over 100% of supply? The price goes up. Enter the subreddit r/Wallstreetbets. The meme subreddit of investing. People who are fully aware that buying stuff on Wall Street is basically just a legal form of gambling, hence the name. They noticed that these short sellers who were betting big on GameStop, really big, too big. Note that these short sellers are the stereotypical billionaire hedge fund managers, the kind of people who got bailed out during 2008 through recession and paid themselves millions in bonuses while everyone else lost their jobs. Those kind of people. You know what's a good way to stick it to those billionaires managing massive hedge funds? Make them lose money. A lot of money. So when the price goes up, short sellers lose money. What happens when a bunch of meme lords decide to buy the stock and vow never to sell it? Well, the short sellers are still obligated to buy the damn stock back. There's just even less stock available to for them to buy. Even tighter supply plus massive demand equals even higher stock price. So far, these hedge funds have lost billions due to Redditors memeing. And guess what? They had to get bailed out by other hedge fund buddies. And they doubled down. They're short selling the same stock, while Redditors are buying and holding and driving the prices up even higher. It's really just a matter of who gives up first. Louis Rossman has good videos about this. Not to laugh. It's part of the system. It's legal. Like what they're doing is 100% legal in the actual system. That we'll get to the end as we go through, because now there's some situations coming up with the platforms that they're using to do this and the attempts to actually stop this. But Louis Rossman has two videos that Willie Olio linked, and those are going to be in there if you check out the link at rantathon.wordpress.com. But you know, follow this. And one of the things I saw from this is I've just been following what's coming in, and I'm just like, I'd heard about this some time back, and I was wondering, when did it start? As it was mentioned here, right now it moved on to AMC, it's been on some other things, but it was GameStop earlier. Like, I'd heard some rumblings about it some time back, and there was an article here that was posted by Forbes, and I was going to share it, even though I have a bit of a go slow on Forbes. There was somebody, Randall Lane, posted about how, we shouldn't hire like former Trump administration people, and I think he kind of just took this on himself. And this is what I'm saying with the kind of climate that's been going on in the media, in the social sphere in the United States of America and the world in general over the last 4 years. You don't even have to like instigate massive plans to actually get things. People were set up in a situation where they thought they were actually fighting some kind of war. So people would take it on their own hands to like, I need to virtue signal, I need to do this, I need to say this, I need to speak out because this is a war we're fighting. So Randall Lane, I don't think there was enough editors, there's enough lack of checks and balances of people who are of the same mind of him, because you don't just post this out. He was an editor at Forbes and he posted this, but Steve Forbes and others have come out and said, okay, that's not really something we stand for. We don't support him coming out and saying this, because other people, regular people, read that and they're like, we don't want somebody to be biased. There's people who are Trump supporters who read Forbes and like, okay, what is this? What is this kind of depersoning, deplatforming of people? Not just deplatforming, depersoning of people that you want to do on political lines. Okay. But anyway, they had something posted there about a hedge fund genius apparently had started some of this, and because when you're talking about these kind of things, there's people involved in there. I think they were talking about like Elon Musk who's like lurking in the group and things like that. So it's not just rando people. It's this people have been using apps like Robinhood, as we'll discuss later on in this article. They've been using these apps to actually get online, do day trading, do their own kind of trading and things like that. It's very easy access to actually get into it. And it's kind of a field where people are like, oh, should you be experts? Are they going to set up rules and they say, oh, only set people are allowed to actually be involved in this field, in this league? But then when you look at the situation where you have something like universal suffrage, where ostensibly the equal rights, equal access to all these things is one of the things that people tout, especially people on the political left. They tout like that's one of the things. And then now you have this happening and you're seeing the boot come down on just the regular people who are trying to get involved in the stock market and things like that. So, okay, it says hedge fund genius who started GameStop's 4,800% rally now calls it unnatural, insane, and dangerous. He might have just been trolling. He might have just been something, and then there's a translation to little people who are doing what we normally do to them, and we don't like it. So we're going to go on TV and use words like collusion and fraud to get it to stop. And I said, there's something that's going to happen. You're looking what's happening with the post-January 6th, the things that are being talked about. Oh, we need to change these laws. We need to control these things. That was going to be used. It's going to give people carte blanche to start using their power and influence to control and shut down things that are essentially unrelated to what happened on January 6th. And you're already seeing that happening. So just sharing this, because maybe even posting this video, because I've mentioned COVID a couple of times, but because in the article, I'm just going to admit, I haven't read the Forbes article because there's some kind of paywall normally when you actually go there. But with the Forbes article, they probably mentioned that this has happened because a lot of people have been day trading, have entered the stock market during COVID. That's probably mentioned in the article somewhere. It's not mentioned in the actual title that's posted here. The person I was sharing it from did not mention it in his comment, but by me actually trying to share this to my wall, there's a notification that comes up saying this post mentions COVID-19. For more information and the resources, go to the COVID-19 Information Center. Originally from Forbes. It's like, what? No. This is an article about the stock market, not about COVID. I don't want this info. But this is the kind of thing. Now, you're in a situation where there's some people who are in control of certain things. And right now, the social media giants are in that as well. They are the establishment. They are the people who have been controlling information. There's people who've been controlling the stock markets. There's people who've been controlling politics. There's people that have been controlling the media. Now they're getting into a point where you're getting into this globalized world. You're getting to this situation where there's more access to actual information, and they can't actually control some of these things. You have this quote from this person on Reddit. We can remain retarded for longer than they can stay solvent. And I was just wondering where this is coming from. And one of my friends, Adam Patrick, who recently had me on his Year Talking Over Me podcast, I'll probably post a link to that also on the Rantathon. Might post like a clip from it on my actual places where I post videos and audio and things like that. It was a good conversation just talking about the things that I was kind of observing. But I was trying to come to an understanding before I start talking on it, that understanding that I came to, where what we're witnessing right now is a society when many of the primary institutions have decided to say, we're not going to follow this social contract that you think we've been following. They're going to actually just come out and admit and show you what they're actually about. And what's going to happen after that is what is going to be interesting to see right here. And that's what I don't see, like, how are they going to actually stop this? And when I was writing this, I was like, how are they going to stop this? And this was before they've actually decided Robinhood, I think, Robinhood, the app itself, where I think over 50% or so, reportedly, over 50% of the actual users had some GameStop stock on them. Now they've got to a situation where they're not allowing people to buy more stocks. You can only close out. So there's some kind of control in that. Now, is that in the terms and conditions? Someone has already sued. So I don't know what's happening with this. But I was kind of wondering, like, where did that quote come from? Did someone just come up with it himself? Because when I first saw it, I was like, okay, let me double check. And there's one of my favorite sites, one of my good sites. I like etymology of words, trying to find out where things came from. And this quote, investigator.com, they have this actual thing: the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And they're wondering, is this from John Maynard Keynes or A. Gary Schilling, Howard R. Evansky, or apocryphal? Apocryphal is just like for someone somewhere else. Okay, so dear court investigator, the gyrations of financial markets can be startling. I'm reminded of the following words of wisdom attributed to economist John Maynard Keynes. The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Supposedly Keynes said this after he performed a series of highly leveraged trades, and he was humbled by the market. Yet I have been skeptical of the attribution because the great economist died in 1946, and the earliest evidence I have appeared decades after the 1940s. Would you please help? So the person looks through, and this is a great site where if you think you've heard a quote, you can go in and actually look in and see where the thing comes from. And I think at the end here it says, in conclusion, this saying appeared in print in the 1990s and was closely associated with a financial analyst anal rapist from Arrested Development. Okay, with Tobias Funke. Okay, so the financial analyst A. Gary Schilling. Based on current evidence, it's possible that Schilling crafted his apothegm. It's based on current evidence. It is possible that Schilling crafted of this apothegm. The journalist Jason Zweig believes he heard the phrase earlier and thinks it was in use by the late 1980s. The evidence linking the quote to Keynes is very weak and may be due to confusion with another saying attributed to Keynes, as mentioned above. So that's in there. You can check that out for more information. But the reason I'm including that is just we're living in a time where there's an information age. There's a lot of information out there. But do we understand these things? We can also enter the age of understanding, but actually, if you have a question, if you're wondering if something is true, go online and try to find information. Try to understand what's going on in the world, because these things affect us, whether we're actually directly aware about these things. I think you're going to be affected by them in one way or another. And that's something that I'm seeing, and that's something that, to me, it's a good time to be alive, despite some of these things happening that are really getting on people's they're really affecting certain people in certain ways that they're not too too pleasantly too happy about. Okay, now let me finish this off right now, winding down. So what was going to happen with these things? Call the feds. Are we going to call the feds? And there was a small clip of Jen Psaki. Could be Psaki or Psaki. I think it's Psaki. Jen Psaki, who is she's the current person who's the press secretary for Joe Biden and Biden's America, the new administration, United States of America. And there was a reporter who went on there and she was like, all these things, and I'm not just trying to make fun of this, but she was actually saying a whole lot, and she was asking the questions like, and what's going on with like the GameStop, and it's like, oh, whatever. And imagine this is supposedly the White House, supposedly some of the top people in the world, and this is what reporting is right now. Some of the top reporters supposedly are just asking like whatever in a question and things like that. So they just say that. But Jen Psaki, I think it's Psaki. She answers that, oh yeah, we just passed that to the market. Like she was like, now that we have Janet Yellen, who's the first female secretary of finance, when we have anything to do with the market, we just pass it on to her. So we'll come back to that. First of all, with the market thing, when we have things to do with market, we pass it on to her. And is there something about, this is the first time I noticed this, is there something about certain people who would say the science, put the science on top of actually science, and there's a difference between the science and the scientific method? There's definitely a big difference between that. But is there something about that where people also just drop the from the market? For me, when I'm talking about the market, I'm not talking about the free market. Free market is a specific form of it, like free market capitalism is a specific form of what's going on. And that's not what has been going on in the current state of the United States of America. We say it's capitalism's fault. So what's happening with the stock market is capitalism's fault. No, it's corporatism at most. There can be some oligarchy involved in there. But when it comes to that, when they talk about that, the market, they say market. What are you talking about market? Was it market as in stock market? Is that what she was referring to, just shortening stock market? Or did she mean market as in anything to do with the market in general, market economies? It's the market in general, markets where people exchange things. All right. So when it comes to that point, I was like wondering what is that. But I'm just saying, right now, if you got into a situation where the administration actually decided to go in and actually get involved in this and be more than just we're looking, we're following what's going on, actually go in and start causing laws. That is what fascism was about, government control of private entities. They didn't nationalize things, but they had the control in it. Okay, so that's something that I was wondering, is that what's going to happen? Are they going to actually just play their hand this way, this early in the administration? But no. Something else happened. And I think what happened here with Robinhood, there's a bunch of different images here that I have, and I think I'll just run through a couple of them, and then you can check out the rest of them. You can actually go online and find out more information. It's an unfolding story as it goes, and it's. When did you first hear about this? Is this the first time you heard about this? If so, thanks for coming to listen to it here and whatnot. But here's some of the things that have happened with it just recently. In my walk back in the start of this actual presentation, this video, this audio thing, wherever you listen to it, this hadn't happened yet, but this just recently happened. So, unacceptable. AOC calls out Robinhood for blocking GameStop purchases and suggests holding a hearing about it. Now, with this one, I also do not. I have issues with the state itself. Taxation is theft, but there's a social contract that says, because you are an institution that we have agreed is for some sort of greater good, and you actually follow some rule of law, we accept you to do this action that if somebody else did it, it would be theft. But when there's insider trading in the government, what happens to them? I think Kelly Loeffler, who was running again for senator in Georgia, she lost, but she was involved in it. There was somebody who actually is still in the Republican Party that was involved with the most recent insider trading issue happening during the coronavirus. They had some information about it, supposedly some kind of meeting, and then they made some trades that were kind of suspect. They were just censured. Nothing big happened to them. So when it comes to the government, we're not allowed to do this, but they're allowed. And now when it comes to this again, it's the stock market. The hedge funds are allowed to talk about these things and then manipulate the actual stock market and do their buys in their own little boys clubs and girls clubs and rich folks clubs and hedge clubs and things like that. Not to hedge their bets together, but when regular people do it, it's all of a sudden a big issue. But okay, so We now need to know more about Robinhood's app decision to block retail investors from purchasing stock, Representative Kaiser Cortez said. Then Robinhood alternatives, how to open an account with Cash App and E-Trade. So that's showing people are now leaving, just like how with Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and these other platforms had their own censorship issues and people are moving to other things, which I think is a positive thing. It's going to increase the competition in these places. Robinhood curbs trading of Reddit-driven stocks, prompting user outage. So Bloomberg, Robinhood Markets and Interactive Brokers Group Inc. curbed trading in the stocks, including GameStop Corp and AMC Entertainment Holdings. Then GameStop stocks plunge as much as 60% after Robinhood curbs trading on widely volatile morning. That's from Business Insider. What else do they have here? So this is by Pulte at Twitter. It says, responding to Walter Bloomberg, saying Robinhood customer sues over removal of GameStop because he asked before he was saying, who's going to be the first to file a class action lawsuit against Robinhood app? And then, yeah, somebody did it already. They're showing the stock market of it dropping. Just it was up to, it hit the high, I think, of $483. Now it's down to $112. It's a massive drop. And again, this was not about them making a lot of money on this. They were not selling the trades. They were actually just keeping the trades. They had made the decision, we're not going to do this. So when the actual hedge funds need to buy back, to actually give it back to the people they promised and loan money to sell from, they did not have enough to actually do it. So they were holding it. And people were wondering, some of the coverage and news coverage come like, what are these people trying to do? Why are they trying to make money? It's like, it's not really about the money. People just want to see the world burn. It was about just the actual showing them that, look, we're not playing this game anymore. Y'all already admitted you're not playing this game anymore. So why should we follow these social contracted rules that we have if you're not going to accept them? This is from El Presidente, from Barstool Sports. He's done a great thing during this COVID thing. He did this whole thing of raising money for small businesses and things like that. But he just says, I will burn Robinhood app to the ground if they shut down free market trading. And so that's already happened already. So that so it's a mess going on with this is Timcast. This is Tim Pool. He has a very popular show on YouTube. He reads news and things like that. He says, I bought some Nokia, not a lot, and now Robinhood is trying to force a crash over and F me over. I can sell at loss and that's it. How the fuck is that legal? So that's happening in the situation. Benziga here says the GameStop and AMC, Robinhood removes GameStop. AMC puts notice on all pages saying you can close out your position in the stock, but you cannot purchase additional shares. So that's where we're at right now. And let's see what happens in this. But this is just a reminder. So people were kind of talking about how, Robinhood, it's good that it's a Robinhood app because finally the little man's coming out and taking money from the wealthy people. And no. Just a reminder. This is just a reminder that Robinhood was actually a criminal, undocumented commie with socialist practices. And here's a post that I had back in November, shortly after the election. I was thinking about Robinhood. I don't know why Robinhood was coming up, but I thought about this. Robinhood, a commissar of the undocumented seizure of a fair share of commonly owned resources for the redistribution to the proletariat. Because that's kind of how he's looked at. He's looked at this kind of folk figure. But when you actually look at it, he was actually somebody who was stealing money that other people had earned. You can say, like, some of them, like, yeah, the Earl of Nottingham, the Sheriff of Nottingham, the Earl, and those people, they were kind of dicks in their own way. But then there's enough dicks in this bag for a lot of people. Everybody can be dicks. Everybody involved is dicks. There has to be some good guys and bad guys. That's how real life works. Like, in some of these situations, these people are just the people. This is just the way they are. But Robinhood himself, he was not some kind of heroic figure. He was actually stealing from people. Some of those people, not everybody he took from was some evil person who was taking advantage of the poor, like indigent people. No, some of these people had just earned their money. And Robinhood was taking, like, how did he know? How did he know who was bad and who was good? Who had taken their money in unethical ways and who was actually ethical and just hardworking? Who actually was supposed to deserve that? But anyway, so this thing, before it said this whole, like, we can remain retarded for longer than they can remain solvent. And with that retarded and that kind of use, some people might say, oh, trigger warning, or you insulting people with mentally handicapped. That's not what I mean. And that is, problems occur not because of what X is, because of how we define X. If we define that we are living by a certain social contract and things are working well, then you're going to be surprised when people behave in a certain way. But right now, we're getting more of a definition of actually seeing the way things actually work. And then once you understand how things actually work, you can actually adjust and work in a better situation to what the reality is. When they talk about here, like, we can remain retarded longer than they can remain solvent. It's not retarded like mentally handicapped, but it's a situation where it's like there is a certain way of things. It goes with the slang kind of thing, like, oh man, that's just retarded. Where it's just like a crazy, like, absurd type of thing. Like, why would you do this? Because for them, they're looking at it and they're like, are you mentally handicapped? Are you? They're thinking that kind of situation where it's like, what is wrong with you? It does not compute. You're not working in the system. Why are you working this way? They don't understand what's going on. But it's kind of a situation where you look at that and you're like, we have our own ideas. They have their own ideas of why they're doing this. They're doing this for some different kind of situation that is outside of the general accepted power structure of the elites or the establishment of how they actually gain and game the system. And they're like, wait, you're all of a sudden what are you all of a sudden doing? And just a few memes that I'm going to finish off with. And I think of the merchandise of the post, you are going to be able to actually get the Parasite merchandise is up in my merchandise store. You can go there and actually get that. No, it's on Redbubble for now. There should be links to that wherever you listen to this. But I think there's also something else that I want to expand on, probably in separate videos, like Sanctuary Citizen and My Own President. Things have been exposed, and people need to get the situation back into individualism. They need to start presiding over their own lives. They need to be sanctuary citizens and understand, like, if you are actually the one setting laws for yourself, because when it comes down to it, there may be laws in society, but you're the one who has to follow the laws. You're the one who has to follow the contracts. You're the one who's a sanctuary within yourself. Be solid enough and certain enough in yourself as an individual to be able to find sanctuary yourself. Don't seek that from other people. You can have friends, you can have a group, you can have support, but try to get as solid as possible that if it was just you, what would you want? How would you want to live? How would you feel safe? How would you maintain your safety? How would you secure things in your life? How would you preside and make the actual rulings? Be that executive over your own life and things like that. And I think the world will become better. And I'll probably try to leave some links, and it might be on the screen right now. But there's just a few memes, because memes of life is like Federal Reserve. That's Shaq sleeping. When Federal Reserve destroys the economy multiple times, CNN, MSNBC, I sleep. Shit posters mess with the money and Wall Street elites with illegal transactions. CNN, MSNBC, real shit like the eyes are opening. There's a really funny meme video on on the Wall Street bets where they're doing they did just like, it's a cut of the scene in Troy. Is it Troy? I think it was, yeah, Troy, with Brad Pitt, where he's landing on the actual beaches of Thermopylae. It wasn't Thermopylae. It was I'm forgetting the actual location. Actually, he's storming the beaches and things like that. And it's a great scene. It's like a 5-minute scene, but they cut it in with like Papa Elon as Achilles and then other people in there. And so this has been going on for some time. It just hit the news recently. The last couple of days, it blew up, but it's been going on for some time. And this is not even. It's not even the end. It's not the end of this is a continuation of something. This is something that has been happening for some while. Mark my words. It's a continuation of something. It's not the end of something. It's not even the beginning of the end of something like in the old world. It's something that has been continued. This is a human story that's just going on. Some of the things we think, oh, it's a new year, or it's a new me, or it's this and this, or a new administration, oh, it's a new. No. This is part of the ongoing human story that we're going to just keep taking apart to it. Then there's one where it's like, the free market is failing. People look at the NASDAQ thing and they're saying that. And this is a friend of mine. Somebody I know did this on this Actually Anarchy Bro page on Facebook. If you're still on Facebook, you should go follow that page. There's some good memes and things like that coming up on there. So people are saying like, oh, like somebody that open face type of soy brother type of guy holding a phone saying the free market is failing. It's like NASDAQ head calls on regulators to manage the situation after regulators drive up GameStop stock. People are trying to blame this on the free market. This is not what the free market actually is. But hopefully with things like this, it's going to actually raise awareness. There's going to be people who can actually go get information. Like, I didn't know too much about the stock market. I had touched on it a bit, looked into it, but just that explanation I opened up with here gave me a lot of more knowledge in what short selling was. Were you aware of this going on? Do you think that's free market? Do you think what's happened right now with Robinhood coming in with the regulators and things like that, do you think that's free market? Do you think it should be legal for what the actual people do, the short sellers? Because they actually work under the SEC. They actually work under the current regulatory system, and that's legal for them to do it. So why is it legal for them to do it, or just for them to do it, ethical for them to do it? But now when regular people on an app do it, all of a sudden it's now problematic. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts about this going on? What are your thoughts about my general kind of premise of the theme of what I'm seeing going on is that we're witnessing what's happening, when primary institutions of a society, of a culture, just admit that they're no longer going to actually deal with the social contract that's actually accepted by the regular people. What do you think about that kind of premise of what's theme of what's actually going on? So let me know what you think. Did you buy any of these stocks? Are you involved in the stock market? Do you think I butchered this thing? Do you think there's more information about this that would be good for other people to know about the stock markets of what was going on? Let me know that in the comment section, wherever you can post, wherever you listen to this. Till next time, like, share, subscribe. Shall be back with more content. Have some videos ready to post. Been trying to collect my thoughts together and kind of refresh my mind as a lot of information had come in over the last 2 months. But looking forward to this year. Going to have this calendar year, it's Gregorian calendar year, have a new project, a new series coming up with Stephen reading Human Action. And I think people are just not that aware about economics, financial economics, but the book like Human Action, which is one of the most amazing books that I've ever read, and things like Man, Economy, and State, when you actually get into things like that, once people are aware, this stuff is not complicated, but it's not common sense. So just making people aware about the way the systems actually work means we can do a better system because it's more ignorance rather than people who know these things and they're just doing things that are not necessarily pro-human flourishing. So that's it. Till next time, goodbye.